My name is Kikin Gallego. I am currently a data engineer at Microsoft. I currently work in the campus in Seattle. Specifically, if you've been in Seattle, I work in the Redmond campus. Beautiful campus. If you are ever in town, you can tell Leonardo, you can send me a message on LinkedIn and you're like, I kind of want to know how the campus looks. Can you show me around? It's kind of like a university campus. It's huge, so many amazing people. It's its own atmosphere, and it kind of I like to go to the office just because I really like to go to campus. Um, but I'll talk a little bit more about Microsoft later. So this is the agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, then talk about what you guys are trying to figure out is getting a job, and then just some advice to students. So let's start the agenda, and feel free to pause me at any time. So background about myself. So I was raised in a border town called Mexicali, Calexico. I was lucky enough to be exposed to cultures. So on the left side of the image, this is Mexicali. So this is in the Mexico part, and on the right side of the image, this is Calexico. Calexico will be considered an agricultural small town, and Mexicali is an industrial town. So you can see there are millions of people in Mexicali, but it's just farmland in Calexico. So that's my origin. It's a I consider myself lucky being raised here just because I was exposed to two cultures at the same time. I was exposed to the Mexican culture and was raised in Mexico, but I also was exposed to the American culture and was raised half of my life in California. So that's why I kind of consider myself lucky. I am aware of both cultures and I speak both kind of slangs, Mexican slang and then American slang as well. First of my family to graduate and first to attend, also first to actually graduate from college. So kind of am proud of that, and hopefully that encouraged. My goal was to encourage my little brothers to also graduate from high school and also attend college. You might be wondering like what caught your attention, CS? There's so many majors out there. So originally I kind of wanted to become a doctor. The typical idea of becoming a doctor is one of those goals that you want to do when you're a little kid. But then I started. I met one of my cousins. He went to MIT, and he studied mechanical engineering at MIT. And he was working when I was visiting him in December. He was working on a CS project. I think he was taking like an intro to CS project. And I was just curious of what he was doing. I believe it was kind of like a game that he was programming. And that really caught my attention. I did not know CS was a thing until he showed me. He explained it to me what the major kind of consisted of. And that just kind of sparked my interest. And when I was applying to college, I was like, oh, CS is an actual major in the colleges I want to apply. Let me see if I can get into a college and study computer science. But my original plan was to actually study medicine, and I actually did my first year of college. I actually studied medicine. I was doing the prereqs for medical school and taking CS classes at the same time. And then I was just trying to pick and choose what kind of fits my personality and where I see myself in the long run. Something I do outside of work. Everybody has to have hobby. Coding is not everything. I know we all like to code in some way. This is why we are studying this major. But some things I like to do is I currently volunteer in a program called TELS. You guys are also open to volunteer if you guys are interested. I believe college students can volunteer, and it's just a volunteer program where you teach a specific high school student CS throughout the whole year. So right now, virtually, I'm teaching computer science, intro to computer science, to a high school student. I believe they're juniors and seniors at a remote school here in the Washington state. So that's something I enjoy doing. The reason why I joined the TELS is I really like teaching. I did that in my internship job a couple of times. And one of my goals is to eventually, hopefully, become a university professor or a community college instructor. And then additional hobbies that I have. I'm really into snowboarding. This year, I think I went to 15 mountains. So this year was my record. I weightlift. You have to get those gains after coding. A big passion I have is I solo travel. So that means on my vacation time, I buy a random plane ticket to a country and I travel through that country for 2 weeks to a month and try to meet people from other countries that are also doing solo traveling, or just try to be more immersed in that culture. I think right now I'm still in the low side, but I've traveled to, I think I'm in the 12 or 14 countries. So hopefully I can bump it up to two more countries this year, or 3 if I'm really lucky. And then a hobby that I got into in college was salsa and bachata dancing. I was really bad at dancing, but then I saw a class in college, took it, and I really grew a passion for it. And something that I do at the same time, and all my hobbies kind of are joined together. When I solo travel, I snowboard, so I try to go to a different place each year. When I solo travel, I also try to salsa and bachata dance. So when I went to Japan, I actually danced salsa in Japan. So it's fun. Those are the hobbies that I have, and I kind of enjoy that I can do all 3 or 4 of them at the same time. Is there any questions before I move to the next slide? Okay. Just image-wise, this is Montreal, Quebec, Canada, when snowboarding for a full week with some friends from Mexico. And then this Thailand. I believe this is Chiang Mai. I went to Thailand for, I think, 15 days by myself. Recommended, a really fun experience, and it was really nice to actually be able to touch and play with elephants.
I have a question. Do you surf?
Yeah, go ahead. I am not a surfer. I lived in Long Beach for a year, but Long Beach is not known for their waves. So I've never lived in an actual city that you can surf. So I haven't had the experience to do that. So that's why now living in Washington, there are 3 mountains in Washington where you can snowboard. And the season starts in December, and I think this year it ended in early April. So snowboarding is my passion right now. So I'm sorry for all the surfers. I haven't tried it out. I tried it out once with one of my brothers. I broke a board, and then I did not try it again.
That's fair.
Then educational journey. So when I graduated from high school, I did not get accepted to the university that I wanted to attend. It was a little bit discouraging, but I knew that it's not the end of the world. So I attended the local community college called Impro Valley in the American side of the border, which would be Calexico. I attended there for 3 years. This is where for the first year, I took medical school classes and computer science classes. And then after I noticed that CS was my major to go to, I just stuck with computer science, and I completed my associate's degree. After that, I was lucky enough to be able to transfer to the University of California, Riverside, where I completed my undergraduate degree in computer science. I believe it took me about 2 years, so 5 years in undergrad, including community college, where I met amazing people. I worked with incredible professors who I still keep in contact. Important, try to keep in contact with the professors and the students you meet in college. Some of them will help you find jobs. Some of them are going to still become your best friends in life. And then after I finished my undergrad degree, I was presented the opportunity to do my master's degree in 1 year due to my GPA. So the professor that I did my research, he encouraged me to do my master's degree in computer science. I just stayed 1 more extra year in UCR, where my main focus was on just data engineering overall, data engineering, machine learning, and database management. So that's where I kind of started tailoring into a specific area where I felt more interested. But this is a little bit about my journey. Started high school, community college for 3 years, transferred to UC Riverside, got my undergrad degree, and then I got my master's degree at UC Riverside as well. Now my professional journey and what's really important. So like you guys know, experience is something really big right now. Even for entry-level jobs, they kind of want to know that you have experience or can be able to handle the industry. So when I was in undergrad degree, when I was doing my undergrad and when I was doing my grad school, I did a couple of internships and research opportunities. As well, I was also a TA. I believe I was a TA for, I do not remember what was a TA. Oh, I was a TA for data management class, just because my focus was in data engineering. So my first internship job was it was called Riverside County Health Informatics. Our main goal was to analyze data we get from the county of Riverside regarding homeless people, create data visualizations, create pipelines for that data, and then present that data to the county, where the county will send it to the federal government to get an idea of the homeless population, and that will help them get more funds to help homeless or get less funds depending. So that was my first research. I did it with the professor who I did my master's. So that was and I working that research project for about 2 years. After that, my professor introduced me into a second project if I wanted to join him, and it was called Data Science Academy. The main project was we were trying to encourage high school students with low resources to study STEM. So the main goal was to teach CS, specifically data science. We were focusing on data science to high school students, so we can encourage them to apply for a data science degree in college. And then after that, I had a couple more internship jobs at school. I did an AI for medicine project with the same professor, where we were trying to use machine learning to be able to analyze patients' notes and be able to correlate diseases with symptoms. I also worked with a different professor on creating a web application. I believe it was also for the county, where politicians can have town halls. And then my last internship job that I did, and this one was mostly during my graduate degree, I worked at the Naval Sea System Command, so NAVSEA, or the Navy specifically. I was a computer science intern for them for the whole duration of my grad school. So I think it was about a year, where I was working as a full stack developer and as a data engineer at the same time. After I finished my internship jobs and my research, I was provided the opportunity for a full-time offer at NASI, where I continue as a full stack and data engineer. And then after a couple, I believe about 6 months, I was able to join Microsoft, and this is my current role. And I am mostly a data engineer at Microsoft right now. So this is a bit about my journey, how I was able to make my resume a bit competitive, how I was able to gain some experience. College is a great place to get experience, either through internships, or my recommendation is just keep bugging that professor that has a research that you are really interested, and eventually they'll give you an opportunity to work with him. But staying in internship jobs, research opportunities, or even if you do a big project with one of your teams, one of your friends or a group of friends that showed that you are doing work outside of your normal class, really makes your resume pop out, and big companies are more interested in you. So my current role at Microsoft, I'll just give the general idea, is I am a data engineer at Microsoft. My work focuses on making all graphics drivers and displays reliable in Windows. So if you have a gaming PC, or if you have a Alienware monitor, or just any driver, if it's not working properly, then you can bug me. But our main focus is on making those drivers from all companies like Intel, NVIDIA, compatible with the OS, and make all displays. Example, I have an Alienware display, be able to make those features that those companies like Alienware create for the customers compatible with the all the computers that use the Windows operating system. So the main goal for my work and the work my team does is we analyze, data engineer, create pipelines. We create features and try to analyze how reliable drivers and displays are when we have external partners. Any questions about my job or my position? I can go more into detail, but I can go more into the tools we use and stuff like that. But my main role is it's more like a data science role, where we analyze data, create pipelines, create new data sets, new feature engineering, machine learning models. So that's mostly my role. And our focus is on making all graphics drivers and displays from other companies reliable in Windows. I guess if there's no questions, then I believe this is where everybody's trying to figure out, is actually getting a job. And that's the tricky part. I know there's a lot of news out right now about it being really competitive. There's not a lot of jobs right now. And I want to say it is a bit scary, but there are still more computer science jobs out there than actual engineers. So what's a good starting point? You do have to make your resume competitive. So a good point is create a project with your friends. A big project, something that pops out, something outside of the normal projects you do in school. Or try to find an internship job. Don't be afraid to just apply for the internship job, because if you apply to 20, if you get one, that one would just make a huge difference. And then if you're more on, I really like research, I kind of want to go that route, and I want to get maybe an opportunity with a professor so I can do it the whole year and not just a summer internship job, then go bug that professor that you believe they're doing a project you're really interested in, and just bug them until they provide you an opportunity. That's what I did. I was one of the students that I bugged my professor a lot until he told me, okay, I'll just give you a job with me. And then after that, I was able to work on 3 projects with him. Second one is just build a portfolio. How we build portfolios is by having projects, internship jobs, but you can also go outside of that. You can find certificates. So example, if there are programs that help you get certificates with Azure or AWS, or there are online courses that you can take that provide you certificates. The idea is to show companies that you are trying to do more than just the normal role as a student in college. You're trying to show them that you do have a passion for this, you like to think outside the box, and you can handle multiple scenarios. You can handle multiple projects at the same time. So you can handle your work and you can handle your school and you can handle your internship job. You can handle your school, but you also have a passion to create projects outside. And then another big tip, and one of my friends who's in HR told me this, is if you want a particular job, something you can do, example, when I applied for Microsoft as a data engineer, I tailor my resume to be focused on data engineering. So I applied for a normal software engineering job, but I really wanted a data engineer position. So my resume was focused on all the projects and research and the research I did for data engineering. If you're more interested in full stack, you can just show, you can say that your project, you were a front-end developer, you were a UI developer. You have to tailor your resume into what the resume or the internship job is offering, or the position is offering. But as an entry level, you can be more general. But the idea of tailoring is it kind of helps the company have a better understanding what is your passion, what you actually enjoy. If you want to be a full stack, if you want to be a data engineer, if you want to be a machine learning engineer, a DevOps. So if you can have, so that kind of helps companies decide if you can what team you can join once you get an offer with them.
How did you prepare for Microsoft?
In what way? You mean applying for the job and preparing for the interview?
Prepare for the interview specifically.
Yeah, I'll go in this right now. And there you go. The two things that I did to prepare for Microsoft. So first, I tailored my resume for Microsoft and the position they offer. I believe the position was an entry level, and I really wanted a data engineering role just because I've worked as a full stack already for 3 or 4 years, and I wanted to try something different. So the projects that I did as a full stack, I just kind of worded them to show them a focus in data engineering. So so data pipeline, database management, data analysis, machine learning. So I used the same projects that I did in full stack, and I just specified the work I was doing. But this was my particular case because I wanted to become a data engineer. After that, the interview process was pretty usual for a big company. I had an interview with the recruiter. The recruiter asked me some typical computer science questions that you learn in college, like what are threads, what's the OS, and stuff like that. And then after that, I was able to be in the final round of the Microsoft interview, which I believe it was four 1-hour coding questions. So it was a long day. But the way I actually prepared for my interview was, and these are the two things I mostly did, was LeetCode. LeetCode, it's really only for applying for a job. I really haven't used any of my LeetCode knowledge in my job. It's mostly that's how jobs are able to determine if you are a good programmer. But the one that I had a big problem and I needed help on was I was able to solve LeetCode questions by myself. But when I was put on the spot with in an interview, I would get nervous just because you do have to explain your thought process to the other engineer who's interviewing you. You're supposed to not sound that confused, and if the person interviewing you gives you feedback, you're supposed to adapt to that feedback super fast. And I was having a hard time with that. So what I did was I started doing mock interviews, and there are 2 ways that I did it. One was I did mock interviews with friends where they gave me a problem, and we just pretended that he was the interviewer and I was the interviewee. And I would start coding, explaining my thought process. And if I got stuck, my friend would notice, and he's like, "Oh, what if you do this?" And then I had to adjust my thinking to the feedback. But if you want to practice outside, and that's something I did as well, and the questions aren't hard, the ones in this particular webpage called Pramp. So Pramp is a webpage where you schedule a meeting with a random person around the world, and you two mock interview each other. So the first 30 minutes, you ask him a coding question and you are the person interviewing him, and the next 30 minutes, he interviews back. So you get both perspective in the way of receiving feedback and in the way of giving feedback to the person being interviewed. And that's how I mostly got away of that fear and being anxious in interviews and explaining my thought process, was because I was able to practice that a lot. So Pram doesn't really focus on really hard legal question. It's mostly focused on just getting used to explaining your thought process to somebody. Does that answer your question, Leonardo?
Yeah, they answered my question. Someone Sunin asked a question. He said,
Yeah.
what was your coding interview question for when you got interviewed at Microsoft? If you remember.
I do not remember. That was, I think, 2 years ago. I remember. I'll try to remember. One was actually surprising because it was not actually a. He didn't give you code. It was more of he opened a Microsoft Word doc, and we were just talking, and he told me, I want you to brainstorm this in a high level. And each time I answered one of his questions, the problem just got more complicated, but I actually did not code. So that experience was, I think of all the 4 ones I did, that was the hardest one, just because it was really dynamic. He would ask me something and I had to do it on the spot. And then he would ask me another stuff I have to do in the spot, but I never wrote code or I never read an actual prompt. He was making the prompt as the interview would go. And other than that, I believe most of the other ones were, I think I got a dynamic programming one, and I think I got like a hash table one, and then the 4th one I do not remember. But it's really similar to LeetCode. They ask you, they give you a prompt, you code the prompt, and then they ask you, is there a way to optimize this? And you have to think about a way to optimize it, if there is one. Or they will ask you, oh, what if we create this new feature here? And you kind of have to modify your current code to be able to integrate that feature as well. So that was my experience at Microsoft. I also once applied for a company in Long Beach that they were doing, I think they were doing planes, like rockets with 3D printers. And that one was a little bit different because they actually asked me a system design question, which is a different kind of interview process. So that was an interesting experience. But for Microsoft specifically, it was mostly just common legal questions that you see, except that one question where it was more dynamic on the spot, just asking random questions. Is there any other questions? Do not have. Yeah, Long Beach water is dirty. I agree. It wasn't GPU related. So when you apply to big companies like Microsoft, the interview questions are really general. And what I mean about that, they don't know what specific team you're going to join. So the people who interviewed me were not even in my own team. They were in a different team. And once I finished the interview process, then the company decides based on your actual resume and based on which team needs new software engineers, then that's when they decide what team you belong. So for example, it might have been possible that I would have joined an Azure team. It would have been possible that I joined a security team. But I think because my resume was really tailored to data engineering, I joined a data engineering team.
Sorry.
So I see another question. What tools do you use in my job? So right now, as a data engineer, I use Azure. We're using Azure in my team now. We also use an internal tool called, I believe it's called Scope, which is a combination of SQL and C#. SQL, just because we're data engineers, we kind of have to analyze big data. I run. If you guys have ever said your code runs slow and you're waiting like for 10 minutes for your script to complete, sometimes I have to wait 3 to 4 hours for my code to complete. And it's just because of the amount of data we're processing. So I use a combination of SQL and C#. We use the Azure resources as well. And then because we also have to visualize the data. And this is particular because of Microsoft, and we have to use their internal tools. We use Power BI, or we use something really similar to is that what's called that Python notebook that people can use?
Oh, I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the name.
I forgot, yeah, but there's a tool that a lot of data scientists use to analyze data. I think Google has its own version as well. And if you ever used a web page called Kaggle, if you're trying to join data engineering, Kaggle is an amazing web page to practice analyzing data and machine learning. They use that kind of like notebook pattern, notebook infrastructure. So we use something similar to that, but most of our tools are internal, and I mostly code in SQL, C#, and then use Azure. Before Microsoft, and when I was working as a full stack developer in the Navy, I was coding in. Navy does Angular, so I was doing Angular, and then I was also doing Python for data ingestion. So I was using those tools, but that was particular for the Navy, and then at my internship job, I was using React. That was our tool for full stack development. So it really depends what job position you're trying to do. As a data engineer, we don't have to learn React, but we do have to learn about data ingestion, data analysis, machine learning, pipelines, DevOps. But as a full stack developer, you really don't have to learn all those tools. You mostly have to learn about front end and back end tools. So RESTful APIs, and then rendering front end websites. If you guys don't know what, the good thing as an entry-level job is, this is the best moment to just kind of try things out. Maybe you're interested in full stack, but you're also interested in data engineer. Try full stack. If you don't like it, you can switch to a data engineering job. You're still in that early level. Even when you are really deep into your career, you can always change to a different specific area of computer science. I think that's why we showed this major, just because there's so many areas that you can do. So advice to students, network with professors, network with students. My professor helped me get my first job at the Navy. He was a great support. He encouraged me to do my master's degree. Stay connected with your peers and your mentors. They are here to help you out. If they work at a company and you really want to work at that company, they can give you a referral. A referral helps you a lot with just getting that first interview. You're not filtered out. It helps you. They can also give you their perspective of their current career path, and why they chose data engineering over full stack or network over full stack. And I think the most important thing just right now is always stay positive and don't get discouraged about job rejections. I applied to so many jobs when I graduated from college, and I got so many rejections. And then I'm here at Microsoft. I'm in a job that I really enjoy. So it's just applying. You never know. You never know when you might get the opportunity for a job interview. That's the hard part, just getting that job interview, and then you can just prepare for that job interview. But yeah, that's more right now that we're seeing the news that's getting harder. There are still so many jobs, and just keep applying. You'll find a job eventually. And believe I had something else that I wanted to say, but I think that was the main thought. So I will leave it to open questions in case you have any questions. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to talk and just we can make this casual. Just ask any question you have.
What kind of leak code problems did you have? Were you solving for your job as a data analyst at Microsoft?
So when I actually, so the interview process is the same when you're doing an entry level. So it wasn't data engineering codes. I was still doing the common software engineering leak code questions. The reason why I got the data engineering job was because they noticed that I had a passion for data. And so when I completed the interview process, they just matched me with a data engineering team. But the questions were the same questions that you will get as a full stack developer or as a software engineer at an entry level. Once you become more of a senior, then the questions might be a little bit more different because you already have more experience on that field. So the questions will be the same. I would recommend just practice the top 100 interview questions, do one per day, do mock interviews. Those will be the questions they will ask you in an entry-level job position. So they didn't ask me machine learning questions unless you actually apply for a machine learning job.
You mentioned for something to gain experience is to like take on like a project with your friends. I don't know, do you have any suggestions or could you maybe elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah. I can elaborate that. I believe one that you all do, and it will be like your senior design project. So that's a good one that counts as project. I also on my free time I would do individual projects just because I wanted to learn more. I believe there are websites called like Udemy or stuff like that, and where they give you courses, and in those courses you create a project with the instructor. Do not buy like they always have like an 80% discount. Wait until there's like 80% discount before you buy the course. You don't want to pay $200, just pay $20. And those actually help me kind of create new projects. And then when I would do that, and I learned React, and I created a project that the course went over, which is outside my academia. Then I would just kind of talk to my friends and be like, how can we make this bigger? Like, how can we put our interest now in the tools we learn on this course? So it's just kind of talk to your friends. Maybe your friends has an interest in data engineering and you have an interest in full stack, and you're like, what problem can we solve right now? And you can focus on the website, and he can focus on the big data analysis. So kind of those are the things that I did. I took a lot of courses online, which at the end of the course I will complete a project. And then I try to also, with those new skills that I learned, I try to create projects with other friends.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but the easier way is if you find a professor that that can provide you a research opportunity, then you don't have to worry about creating a project with your friends because you're working on a project with other people as well. So I mostly just worked on internship projects and research projects. Those were my main projects outside of my normal academic. But I do have friends that they would join the hackathon, and then they will create projects at hackathon. And that is an example as well of creating a project with your friends.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that
No
makes sense.
problem. Any other question?
I think that's it.
Okay. But yeah, happy you all chose computer science. It's a great field, honestly. There's so many problems you have no idea that we can solve, and the industry is growing. So we are now in the AI war. So I'm not telling you to learn AI, but you can use AI as a tool. I like data engineering because I think it's a really hard problem. It's hard just because there's just so many data is being generated at a really fast pace that's really hard to consume it. So we have to find solutions of how to analyze that data and provide the data to make the world more efficient. And I think the area is pretty new. I think it's about 10 to 20 years. And it's harder, in my opinion, than full stack, but this is my opinion. Just because when I used to do full stack, there are so many third-party tools that help you with validation. But for data engineering, just because you cannot read every data point, you have to think outside the box and do validations in different ways. And then you also have to wait like 3 hours just so your script ends. And then, okay, open questions. So thank you everybody for my small TED talk about myself. And of LinkedIn, you can find me as Francisco Gallego. Let me see. I can just show you how I look.
I linked it on the Discord.
Oh, nice.
Discord.
Okay, no problem. Okay. This is my image, all happy. And then I honestly recommend some way you can get motivated to join a company is Marcus Campus. Hopefully there's a good image. So this is an idea of the Microsoft campus. It is kind of like a university campus. So we have soccer fields, we have common grounds. So this is why I like this company a lot and why I like to go to the office, just because it's not a skyscraper, just one building. It feels like a university where you see all smart people working at trying to make trying to solve problems and mostly trying to solve problems. That's the idea. So this is the current campus that I work on right now.
Pretty nice. I mean, it's missing a couple of turkeys and deers like UCS, or not like UCSC, but it's still pretty nice.
I know. And then it's gray. Sometimes it becomes gray, right?
Yeah. I imagine it's cloudy all the time over there.
Yeah. Oh, last thing, and this is something I learned the hard way, is I know we all want to work. I know most of us want to work, not all of us, sorry for that, want to work at one of those big companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, if you are interested in that. If you don't get accepted the first time, there's nothing wrong with that. I have friends, including myself, that worked on smaller companies, and then we just kept applying, and then we got a job offer. I believe there are interviews where people at Google say they get into Google after like 4 attempts, 5 attempts. So don't be discouraged. If you find a good startup or a good company that you are interested, work there for a bit. And then if you get a job at Microsoft or at Google, then there's nothing wrong with leaving that company and joining the company you want, another company. I worked at the Navy for 6 months, and then I got the job at Microsoft, and they understood that we're just trying to build up our career. So if you apply for a big company and you don't get accepted, it's not the end of the world. If that is still your dream, keep pushing, and eventually you'll get that job there. So that's something I learned after a while, just because in my head, it was like everybody wanted to work at Google, everybody wanted to work at Facebook. And when I didn't get those jobs or failed the interview process, I felt discouraged, but I just kept attempting, and then I got the job at Microsoft.
And now you're 3 years in. Thank you, Gina. I
Three-
very much
three years.
appreciate it.
Yeah, 3 years in. It goes fast. It goes fast. And yeah, if you get a job at a company and you don't like the role you're doing, you can also do an internal move. So if you got a full stack and you're like, oh, I want to try something different, for example, if I work as a data engineer for graphics drivers, you can also do an internal move. Be like, oh, I can tell my manager I want to try to switch to a networking team. So that's also possible. You don't have to stay at the position you got accepted to. But yeah, that's a bit about me, and I hope that answers a lot of your questions. And I look honestly forward to working with some of you, hopefully in the future, either at Microsoft or when I work with third parties like Intel or other companies. Maybe you'll see one of my emails there.
Who knows? I might be the network engineer at Microsoft in 10 years.
You know, you never know. I actually met no, she was security engineer, but yeah, you never know. Never know.
I think you can we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you again for coming. This is really cool stuff, really cool knowledge.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, on behalf of the club too, thank you for coming.
And yeah, one last thing. If you are interested about data engineering, this is the best website where you can learn data science. Kaggle. It's kind of the LeetCode, but for data engineers. And they provide you a data set, they provide you a prompt, and you just analyze the data. This is something I try to do in my free time just because I always want to improve my data engineering skills. But this is the data engineering LeetCode. But they don't ask you this in interview questions. So if you only care about interview questions, just LeetCode.
Yeah.
Okay, then I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and thank you for joining the meeting.